Hi, my name is Paolo, and if you're watching this video, you're perfectly aware that every decision in digital marketing should be driven by the interactions that users have with your digital product. What you probably don't know is where this data actually sits. Well, it sits in a place called data layer, which is where tools like Google Analytics store, collect, and processes information called events. But why am I telling you all this boring information? Well, because it's the analytical backbone that you need to learn if you want to interpret data properly and take better decisions for your business. Here's the reality of most digital marketers. They have ready-made dashboards that probably somebody else made for them to track numbers like traffic, sessions, conversion rate, and considers Google Analytics as a ledger, a consolidated audit-grade tool to analyze what happened historically on your website. But here's the harsh truth. It's not. And this changes everything about how you consider, interpret your data, run your channel attributions, and ultimately decide upon your investment optimizations. In this video, we will talk about the three foundational elements that you need to learn if you want to take back control over your digital marketing data. And finally, understand how Google Analytics actually works. First, we will talk about the event as core element behind the tracking. Second, we will discuss how Google Analytics is a stream-based system as opposed as a ledger. Third, we will talk about how Google Analytics is highly dependent on Google's algorithm. Well, this is not a tutorial. These are three foundational elements that will completely change how you interpret your data and will help you make better decisions. If you're asking me why you need to learn all this, well, it's because your digital marketing data is built on this. Let's begin. So what is an event? An event in Google Analytics is an information stored in the data layer that captures and represents a user's interaction with your website. Of course, an event must be set up to be tracked correctly. An event can be many things. If you're an e-commerce, for example, an add to cart is an event. A view PDP is an event. A click on your menu is an event. After a user has navigated through the website and left traces of his passage in the form of events, which again, they sit in the data layer, Google collects the events, processes them, attribute events to specific sessions, stitches events to specific identities, and deduplicates events across platforms and devices. And finally, reports the results in a dashboard inside Google Analytics, which is the final output that you actually see. What you need to understand about events is that the algorithm that Google uses to process events and reattribute them to user sessions and deduplicates them is extremely important and takes up to 48 hours. It's a very long process. And this is exactly why Google Analytics is a data stream model and not a data ledger. If you are a marketer or an analyst and you analyze your numbers using Google Analytics, you must have asked yourself this question at least once. Why is my data always changing? Well, here's the answer. Google Analytics is a data stream system, not a data ledger. We're used to think as data systems, such as Google Analytics, as ledgers. But the reality is that ledgers are much more typical of invoicing systems and are systems where entries are tracked accurately and very precisely in the moment in which they occur. In the moment in which data entry is recorded, it does not change in a data ledger. A data stream, on the other hand, is a completely different system. As mentioned, a system like Google Analytics, which is based on a data stream model, takes into account the events as core elements and then attributes the event to different kind of KPIs, such as users or sessions. Let's make a practical example. A session is the major KPI, the major interaction that your user have with your digital product. And it can contain many different events. Usually a session starts with the event session start. But then during the session, the user can do many different things, such as view PDP, view product, add to cart, purchase if you're an e-commerce. A session usually ends after 29 minutes of inactivity of your user on your website. So after that time, Google Analytics starts collecting all the events that your user has done on that website, maybe cross-device, and starts attributing them to the correct metric. This data processing can take a lot of time, and this is exactly why numbers can change dramatically, especially within the first 48 hours after the occurrence of those events. But be aware, this is not a mistake. Numbers don't change because you have placed the wrong filters. So, brief, you're saved. Numbers change because Google Analytics has been set up this way. Numbers change because Google Analytics has been set up this way. It must be conceived as a data stream system as opposed to a ledger that prioritizes accuracy over immediacy, and the window of 48 hours must be respected if you want to interpret your data correctly. Okay, let's now add one more level of complication. Other than being a stream-based system, Google Analytics is strongly dependent on Google's algorithms to track and process data. This means that if Google decides to change unilaterally the way they process information and convert them into sessions or users or any other KPI, your data will reflect these changes. The reality is that these changes happen much more frequently than you might think. They can be weekly micro adjustments in the way a specific event is tracked, or they can be monthly or quarterly algorithm shifts. It is true, though, that the changes that have the highest impact are usually the less frequent ones, such as the shift from Universal Analytics to Google Analytics. This paradigm shift has dramatically changed how users, sessions, and events are counted in analytics. And marketers have been given a huge challenge to compare results uh, after and before the paradigm shift from Universal to Google Analytics. This is because Universal Analytics, in short, was using a methodology to count traffic that was roughly 10% more than the methodology that Google Analytics G4 currently uses. Of course, this is a big challenge for marketers who need to use numbers and leverage on numbers to take decisions on their digital strategies, such as channel splits or attribution strategies. So what, should I just stop using Google Analytics? Of course not. Now that you've learned the three main pillars on which your data is built, let me give you some advice on how to interpret your data to take better decisions. Step 1. Wait at least 24 hours before analyzing your traffic. I'm an analyst myself, and I know that business pressures for data analytics are real. Managers expect certain analysis within a certain deadline. But trust me on this one. After this window of 24 hours, data will be much more stable and interpretable. Acting and taking decisions on data that isn't stable is one of the biggest and costly mistakes that marketers can make. 2. Don't panic when numbers change. 24 hours is the minimum amount that you should take into account before running your analysis. But be aware, numbers can change even after 48 hours. But this is not a mistake. This is not a sign that a tracking has broken or you have set up the wrong filter on your dashboard. This is a reflection of how the algorithm continuously reprocesses data into sessions and users, starting from the core element, the event. You need to know it, understand it, and interpret it, and communicate it properly to the stakeholders that you have. 3. Always adjust for paradigm shifts when comparing data across time. When Google runs strong code reviews to its processing methodologies, such as the change from Universal Analytics to GA4 in 2023, it usually only affects future data. It's not retroactive, and the past usually remains stitched and tracked using the previous methodological algorithm. So my advice to you is, first, keep updated on Google's plans to change or modify dramatically and structurally the algorithm they use to process numbers. Second, learn how new methodologies change and differ from the previous ones. And third, Make sure to find a workaround whenever you are running a comparison year over year to make sure that you are comparing apples with apples and not apples with pears. These three habits will not only make you a better analyst, but they will help you fast track your career in digital marketing. Or if you're a business owner, you will be able to better interpret data and to take better decisions to grow your business. So I hope you like this video in which I explain the three foundational elements on which your marketing data is built. If you like my channel, follow for more.